Good afternoon and welcome to Nationwide on the network service of the NTA. We're reaching you live from Abuja. I'm Hawa Salihu Adama. A crucial meeting of the National Food Security Council has been convened. President Muhammadu Buhari, who is the chairman of the council, is presiding over the meeting in the Executive Council chambers of the State House. The meeting is to, among others, receive an update on presidential directive and initiatives aimed at protecting and further enhancing food security in the country. Presentations are also to be made on the 2020 wet and dry seasons, economic sustainability interventions, humanitarian support, as well as agricultural development initiatives of the Central Bank of Nigeria. In an opening remark before the meeting went into a closed session, Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, described the meeting as imperative in view of the negative impact of flooding, insecurity and COVID-19 on efforts at achieving food sufficiency in the country.
With Mr. President being among us, as somebody who knows about farming and agriculture, we believe that his presence is very instructive in addressing not just this hike and transient nature of the cost of and the prices of foodstuff, but also to underscore the importance that he personally, as Mr. President, and the administration attaches to the issue of national food security. My office as the Secretariat of the National Food Security Council met with all agricultural commodity associations to ascertain the root causes of the recent spike in food prices and craft mitigating strategies to what could be a potential crisis. Although various concerns were raised on the increase in the commodity costs, we have been informed that prices are actually currently on the decline as new grains have been introduced to the market. For example, new maize, which was previously sold at 25,000 naira per bag, is now being sold between 12,000 and 17,000 naira, and is expected to fall to between 7,000 and 8,000 naira per bag by November.
In the meantime, the Association of Food and Agro-Processors is seeking more public investment in the food value chain processing to curb food shortages and help moderate fluctuation in food prices. Officials of the association made the appeal during an engagement with the Minister of Science and Technology. Over now to Haman Jabani.
In spite of oil, agriculture remains the base of the Nigerian economy, providing the main source of livelihood for most Nigerians. But due to non-conservation and poor handling of agricultural produce and making it usable as food, feed, fiber, fuel, or industrial materials, the country is losing billions of naira annually. Agro-processing is regarded as the sunrise sector of the nation's economy in view of its potential for growth and likely socio-economic impact on employment and income generation. This is what the Association of Food and Agro-Processors is seeking from the Ministry of Science and Technology.
The scope of the agro-processing industry encompasses all operations from the stage of harvest till the material reaches the end users in the desired form: packaging, quantity, quality, and price.
We want to diversify our economy, and we want to diversify our economy in a sustainable manner. And there is no better way to do it except deploying science, technology, and innovation, so that by developing research products, commercializing these research products, we'll be able to create new enterprises.
The association also wants government to introduce technology for the processing and packaging of food, crops, animal products with the aim of boosting shelf life, remain safe for consumption and retain nutritional value, and make available low-cost and quality food processing equipment for the SMEs, which will entail post-harvest and processing practice for preservation and processing of agricultural produce to achieve food security. Hamman Jabani, NTA News.
And while efforts to boost food production continue, the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency is already warning of possible threats to food security as a result of unprecedented flood level of the River Niger in Niger Republic, which is fast flowing down to Nigeria. NTA Fine Face reports that greater devastation is to be expected in states on the bank of the River Niger.
The level of River Niger as at 7:30 a.m. 10th September 2020 is 7.01 meters in Niamey, Niger Republic. This means more flooding is expected in Nigeria with greater consequence than the 6.60 meters river level that wreaked havoc in several states in August and early September. Now this flood is expected to hit Nigeria in 14 days.
Which means the devastation we witnessed for about 2 weeks now in Kebbi, in Kwara, in Niger states, and then eventually Lokoja and other states. More is still on its way advancing down to Nigeria. So the major implication now is that Nigeria might be facing food scarcity when the agricultural lands have been overwhelmed, washed away.
Highly vulnerable states include states that are contiguous to the River Niger, such as Kebbi, Niger, Kwara, Kogi, Anambra, Edo, Delta, Rivers, and Bayelsa. The River Benue is also being monitored at the moment, and unlike River Niger that has Kainji and Jaba dams, River Benue has no dam. And should the Lagdo Dam in Cameroon release excess water, additional flooding will hit Nigeria from River Benue. NESA is also warning that with many more days of rainfall, urban and flash floods are expected in September and October. In Abuja, NTA Fine Face, NTA News.
And away from flood-related matters, a meeting of the tripartite consultative committee of the executive, legislature and leadership of the All Progressives Congress is on the way at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. The meeting, presided over by Vice President Yemi Oshibajo, is being attended by the Chief of Staff to the President, Ibrahim Gambari, and Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa. And for the legislature, President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawal, his Deputy Ovie Omo Agege, House of Representatives Deputy Speaker Ahmed Wasi, House Majority Leader Al-Hassan Ado Dogowa are all present, while the party's caretaker chairman and governor of Yobe State, Mai Mala Buni, is also in attendance.
The sense of this consultative committee is to ensure optimum service delivery to the Nigerian people. The legislature, the executive arm of government, and the party, the platform on which the legislative and executive arms today are on, are all together in this, trying to shape very strategic means of delivering services to the Nigerian people. We want to ensure that there's good governance continuously for the entire period of our tenure and subsequent years that will be in government by the grace of God. And therefore, this first meeting was to look at those critical areas that we need to concentrate and focus on how to ensure that we improve on the way and manner in which we deliver services to the Nigerian people.
And the National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party, on its part, has appealed to the APC-led federal government to embrace initiatives and policies to promote a vibrant public-private driven economy. Timothy Yusuf tells us more.
Legacy House of the People's Democratic Party in Abuja once again came alive as the National Working Committee members shifted base from the party's National Secretariat, the Wadata House, for this meeting. The state of the nation's economy, insecurity and anti-corruption fight dominated the agenda of the meeting, which resolved that private sector participation will give a quantum leap to the nation's economy. National chairman of the PDP, Prince Uche Secondus, thereafter addressed supporters of the party who converged on the Legacy House to identify with the party.
Their message has been taken seriously and we have deliberated upon it. And by the grace of God, we will do the needful.
The party's National Working Committee enjoined members and supporters to remain loyal to constituted authority at all times. In Abuja, Timothy Yusuf, NTA News.
And it's now time for us to join our Lagos Network Center. And Ruth is our guide today. Hello, good afternoon to you.
Hello and good afternoon to you too, Hawa. The issue of suicide in the country is a growing concern, and the numbers tell a shocking story. In this report, Joy Ken Abapoya takes a look at the cause of suicide, its warning signs and preventions as the world marks the Suicide Prevention Day.
If what the World Health Organization is saying is anything to go by, then about 800,000 people die each year from suicide, while one death is recorded every 40 seconds and about 20 million suicide attempts. And from information gathered, suicide is the leading cause of death, especially for people between the ages of 15 and 29. Folaromi Babalola, who is in her 40s, is a trader in Lagos. She shared her suicidal experience.
Sometimes when you look at something, maybe something come over to you and you don't know what to do again. So the next thing for you, you just, okay, what am I in this world? This world is, in fact, is terrible, and you know, what am I staying in this world for? So it's for me to commit the suicide. If I die, so what is there? When I die, I will go to another place. I will have a rest of mind from this world.
Just like Folaromi, there are many more people who believe that humanity is harsh on them and that nobody or even government cares about them any longer. This is triggered by the downturn of the economy caused by COVID-19. Some respondents attribute the recent bold step towards commuting suicide to the isolation that has also come with months of lack of social activities and stress of navigating through life as people struggle to stay healthy.
They withdraw from the normal way they used to live. You know, some turning, becoming introverts or recluse, they go into their enclave.
Wait a minute. What are the warning signs to watch out for in a person contemplating suicide?
Most cases of people who commit suicide or die by suicidal acts have some invariably have some basic psychiatric problem. There is an imbalance in the mind of the person. That's the impulsivity of it. But with some illness, and this has been statistically proven, suicide could be part of the resolution of the person's mind or conflict that is propelling him toward finishing it up, or saying, oh, what's life all about?
What is the way out?
Some kind of encouragement could be helpful. Luckily, psychiatrists, psychologists at hand, counselors, nurses, and so on, all this in a teamwork that actually face up to a person who is suicidal or having suicidal condition.
There should be a lot of awareness about it. Captains of industries should be engaged as well. Ministers, you know, everybody is our duty, even parents on the community level and the likes.
World Suicide Prevention Day is observed annually on September 10. The observance is a reminder that society needs consistent and improved advocacy for mental health resources so that people struggling with the disorder can find the help they need. In Lagos, Joy Ken Abapoya, NTA News.
And to security, the Nigeria Police Force Zone 2 Command has emphasized the need to foster a more strategic security plan with the Nigerian Army 81 Division to enhance internal security and prevent criminal activities within Lagos and Ogun zones. Assistant Inspector General of Police Zone 2 Command Ahmed Ilyasu stated this while receiving the new General Officer commanding 81 Division, Major General Godwin Umelu, in his office. Abolade Salami tells us more.
Some red spots in the Lagos and Ogun corridor has been tactically fought by officers of the zone, with arrests and recoveries made. In sustaining this feat and mapping out other strategies of promoting internal security in the zones, the newly posted General Officer commanding 81 Division, Major General Godwin Umelu, is here to discuss with the police boss on his mission to ensure lives and property are more secured.
Lagos is a metropolitan city where everybody is in a haste and in a hurry. So, and being the economic hub of the country, it is important that adequate security is provided to allow such activities to go on.
While briefing the GOC, AIG Zone 2 Command Ahmed Ilyasu gives an update on community policing and how it has started yielding results in tackling insecurity in communities. He said the various security measures put in place by the Inspector General of Police to curb crime and insecurity in the country has recorded milestone, calling for support from citizens to complement security architecture to protect them from criminals.
In the new global trends, what is happening across the world, Africa and the sub-region where we are, Nigeria, is global insurgency, low-intensity warfare, proliferation of small arms, and other projectiles. In view of that, the national strategy to ensure safety and security is laid down through community policing.
Right on the spot, the Riot Act was read to those purporting crimes to stay away from the zone or face the consequence of arrest and prosecution. In Lagos, Abolade Salami, NTA News.
And that's it from here. Nationwide continues in Abuja.
Very well, Ruth, and we are not done with the World Suicide Day, as mental health experts have warned that untreated depression can progress towards suicidal thoughts. Suicide is reported to be one of the leading causes of death in the world today, and to reduce the alarming statistics, experts advise people to promptly deal with suicidal tendencies by occupying themselves with positive sides of life and seek medical attention as soon as necessary. Ifoma Ihoje tells us more.
Organization, about 1 million people die by suicide every year, and for each suicide executed, there are about 20 failed attempts. These worrisome statistics has continued to raise concerns, especially as the ripple effect of people taking their own lives impacts on families, organizations, and the society at large. Is there really any justifiable reason to commit suicide?
I really don't see a reason why person would do that.
Life is full of opportunities. If you miss this particular one, there is definitely a situation whereby you will succeed in.
However, research have proven that some persons are more at risk of committing suicide, and some risk factors, according to experts, are genetics, drug abuse, psychiatric disorders like depression, and personality problems that result in extreme adverse reactions to negative life events.
Now, most of the times, people may not really get to speak out. Even when people are depressed, they feel like killing themselves. So that's one of the warning signs for persons who want to commit suicide. They may not really speak out. So it's the neighbors and persons around them that know that this person is not acting the way he used to act. Now he's quite isolated. Now he talks about death. He talks about how his children will feel when he dies, and then he's making plans around, when he dies and stuff like that. So when you are able to pick these things, you just look for a way to get the person to seek help.
Here are some strategies to help people with suicidal tendencies.
To allow these persons to just air their mind and, pour out all the miserableness and hopelessness they feel. And sometimes at the end of the day, they just get a lot better.
People experiencing suicide ideation, talking to loved ones or support workers, limiting the use of drugs and other substances, and general healthy living may help. In Uyo, Ifoma Ihuchi, NTA News.
Issues on emotional, psychological, and social well-being are being brought to the fore as this year's World Suicide Prevention Day reiterates the imperatives for mental health care. A statement credited to the World Health Organization indicates that every year, almost 1 million people commit suicide. It adds that the figure is about 1.5% of all deaths, making suicide the 10th leading cause of death globally. The World Suicide Prevention Day is therefore aimed at spreading the message that suicide prevention is a realistic goal and governments worldwide should work together to find solutions to this growing public health problem. Dr. Raphael Ogbolu joins me live via Zoom now. He is a consultant psychiatrist, Lagos University Teaching Hospital, LUTH. He is also part of the Suicide Research and Preventive Initiative. Before we begin, Doctor, I would appreciate if you could switch on your audio. If you can hear me now, Dr. Ogbolu, interestingly, time was when we assumed that suicide was alien to our culture. What factors have exacerbated how pronounced suicide has become in our culture today?
The first thing is I'd like to say is that it's never really been alien to us. It's just that we have tended not to discuss it. And that's why remember things fall apart. Okonkwo died by suicide. If it was so uncommon in our society, Chinua Achebe would not have featured it in that age-long novel. The other thing, reasons why it seems to be more preponderant now is there's a lack of resilience. Resilience has declined over the decades. And people have attributed several factors to this, including styles of upbringing and that social connectedness, which is no longer there as it used to be. So suicide apparently has not been rare in our society. It's just that people are becoming more aware of it, and it's becoming more reported now.
Okay, so you would say we've been living in denial or been silent about it all this while. Anyway, my next question will be a two-way one. How best can we manage a suicide patient? On how best we can manage a suicide patient? First, how can the family of a suicidal patient manage the often rapid mood swings of that patient to exert calmness and assurances of love? And secondly, do physicians in Nigeria have a clear strategy for dealing with the suicidal patient?
Well, the first thing is to understand that almost all persons who contemplate dying by suicide had clinical depression. And that's why in 2017, the World Health Organization chose Depression, Let's Talk as the theme for the World Health Day, not World Mental Health Day, because it was alarmed by the rate of global depression at the time, which was affecting 322 million people worldwide. And the reason why is the single largest contributor to suicide is depression. So if we can address depression, then we go a long way in addressing suicide. And the aim was that every single person should be able to identify the signs, the basic signs of depression in their neighbor, anyone in their community. And if we can go there and encourage such people to seek help, we will go a long way in addressing suicide. So that's been the thing. But if you do have someone who is then suicidal, let me just say that people who die by suicide do not want to die. They just don't want to continue living the way they are living. And when depression beclouds the mind, they can't see tomorrow. So all you're trying to do is listen to them. Don't trivialize their reasons. We've had under 10-year-olds in Nigeria who have attempted to die by suicide. And people will say, what is a 10-year-old wanting to die for? That's not the focus. because it's that psychological pain which you can't feel, which that person is going through, that you need to address. When you try and dismiss their reasons, it's like just papering over the crack. So listen effectively, show empathy, put yourself in their position and try and get them to help.
Dr. Ogbolu, you are talking about the responsibility of us as individuals. I'm looking at it from the angle of an institution, and I say, is there a particular strategy for physicians in the healthcare system to handle this, or is just you treat as it comes?
No, now the thing is, in 2017, that's why they set up the Suicide Research and Prevention Initiative, because Nigeria had no structured suicide prevention strategy. And with that came hotlines. And from 2017, so because you need to provide, that's the best way to address it, catch people who are going through suicidal tendencies at that time. So the hotlines have been on, and just as you talked about COVID-19, May this year, we got the highest number of calls to our hotlines, which meant that people were really going through mental health problems during the restriction and lockdown.
Oh, okay. Dr. Ogbolu, thank you very much. I guess that's an ongoing conversation. We'll come to you some other time. Thanks for being part of Nationwide today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, moving on. We have more reports on Nationwide, but that will be after these messages.
Featuring great personalities from all walks of life. Expository interview with a young TV presenter who shows passion on what she does. Morayo Afolabi Brown of TVC. Pick a copy of this compendium of mind-blowing stories and get abreast with issues as regards media convergence, leadership, health, star profiles, star programs, fashion, sports, human angle stories, and lots more. Meet some media professionals within our space who have paid their dues in no small ways. TV Guide, very incisive, very educative and compelling. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
From dusk to dawn, 24 hours a day, NTA International is with you. In your living room, office, and everywhere, anywhere. We provide a company you desire in terms of balanced and up-to-date news, programs, and the best of entertainment. Tune in to DSTV channel 251, GoTV channel 91, Freeview channel 264, or live streaming via www.visiontv.co.uk. Application for iOS or Android. Intelsat 901/332.5 degrees east. You can also see us on Facebook and YouTube for quality content on the go. NTA International, Africa's window to the world.
NTA TV College Jos, an affiliate of Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, is currently admitting students for its ordinary diploma programs in television journalism, television production, and television engineering. Interested candidates are advised to obtain relevant information concerning eligibility at our website at www.ntatvc.edu.ng or marketing department of any NTA station nationwide. For further information, contact Assistant Director, Marketing, NTA TV College Jos on 0803-314-4383 or the Academic Office of the College on 0806-980-9807. Announcer, Registrar.
It's nice to have you back on Nationwide. And our Sokoto Network Center is where we go next. Musa is standing by.
Governor Waziri Tambwal has appealed to the federal government to look into the possibility of the Sultan, Gorenyo and Bakaluri dams to check the incessant flooding experienced annually in the northwest zone. Tambwal made the appeal while on sympathy visit to flood victims in Rabah and Gorenyo local government areas. Dalhat Abdullahi reports.
Bakaluri Dam in Zamfara State was completed in 1978 with the capacity of 450 million cubic meters, a reservoir covering 8,000 hectares of land extending 19 kilometers upstream. Gorenyo Dam was completed in 1984 with a height of 21 meters, a length of 12.5 kilometers, and a storage capacity of 976 million cubic meters of water. Records are not clear whether any of the dams was ever desilted in the past 4 decades of their establishment. Flooding has become an annual experience as a result of overflow of water from the 2 dams, causing serious devastations in the northwest zone, particularly from 2010 to date. Governor Waziri Tambwal sympathized with flood victims in Rabah and the Gorenyo local governments, saying government will soon respond to their plight.
Let me call on the Mr. President and the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to kindly desilt Gorenyo and Bakaluri dams. Currently, they have been silted with a lot of sand, and their capacity of containing this water is very, very limited.
Villages were submerged and the crops on farmlands washed away by flood in many parts of Sokoto State. The state government is working on the possibility of constructing a dam at the Jichini area in Rabah local government to avoid future flooding in the area. Governor Waziri Tambwal directs the relevant government agencies to assess the extent of damage caused by flood in the state for necessary action. In Sokoto, Dalat Abdullahi, NTA News.
Meanwhile, Sultan Muhammad Saad Abubakar has identified repentance and prayers as solutions to natural disasters. He stated this in a sympathy message to some communities in Tambwal local government recently affected by flood. Sheikh Muhammad Dati reports.
Represented by a delegation led by the Wazir in Sokoto, Professor Sambuwali Junaid, the visit was to commiserate with the victims of recent flood in the area. While extending the Sultan's sympathy, Professor Sambuwali Junaid prayed against future occurrence of the disaster. The Sultanate, he said, will assist victims with relief materials after assessing the damage done. Over 500 households have been affected, and the bridge that links Roman Sarki and Roman Liman cut off completely. Others affected are farm produce, farmlands, and properties worth millions of naira. District Head of Gindi, Engineer Muhammad Sambu Abubakar, who conducted the Sultan's delegation around the affected places, applauded the visit and prayed against future occurrence. Villages affected include Roman Sarki, Roman Liman, Kaya, and Bakaya, among others. In Sokoto, Show Muhammad Dati, NTA News.
Well, that's it from here. Hawa is back to you.
Many thanks to you, Musa, in Sokoto. Here in Abuja, Governor of Ebonyi State, David Umahi, has called for transparency in governance and full commitment to the delivery of citizen-driven projects for development of those entrusted by the people to do so. This was at a forum in Abuja, where the governor gave a scorecard of his administration. Elizabeth Omori completes the report.
Provided an opportunity for Ebonyi State indigenes resident in Abuja to interact, share developmental ideas, and map out ways to make the state economically vibrant. Governor Umahi, while giving a scorecard of his service in the last year, hinted that the state has recorded giant strides in critical sectors such as health, agriculture, education, security, road, women empowerment, among others.
We've given 4 billion naira to civil servants for them to do agricultural business, which is what the law permits. We have given out a total of 8 billion soft loan, the loan from CBN, to our people to assess for agricultural revolution.
He also disclosed that the state government has embarked on renovation of health facilities, markets, schools, and built flyovers in the state capital. Obviously elated on the successes recorded, the indigenes called on investors to take advantage of the potential abounding in the state to create wealth and promote the economic sustainability agenda of the government.
This platform will bring us to know each other, to know where we are, to know who we are, and we might one way or the other get to need each other.
If we abuse this privilege based on personal aggrandizement and selfishness, when we sit before the judgment of history, we are going to be judged very harshly. So we have to be very careful.
Governor Umahi also urged them to look beyond party lines and support the federal government in the actualization of its agenda and not forget the role tradition and culture play in the development process. In Abuja, Elizabeth Omori, NTA News.
Member nations of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, have been urged to ratify and domesticate sub-regional trade policies to ease implementation of programs aimed at achieving a true community of people. The Minister of State Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Zubairu Dada, said this while discussing the fallouts of the 57th ECOWAS Summit on NTA's Good Morning Nigeria. Butwa Mila has more.
The 7th meeting of ECOWAS head of state and government in Niamey, Republic of Nigeria, has no doubt come under scrutiny. The summit has continued to generate discussions among Nigerians regarding major issues including the regional response to COVID-19, trade and economic integration, among others. Guests on Good Morning Nigeria discussed some of the fallout of the summit.
Talking specifically about the Ghana issue, we believe that very soon we should be able to resolve it without escalating to. Maybe we didn't table it because we are very confident that we're making some headway. They have sent a team to Nigeria, and we intend to also send another team. The legislature is already involved. We didn't want the matter to escalate, as it were. We don't want to give the impression that Nigeria and Ghana are at war. We're not.
But what we agreed upon is that all countries should try to restrict movement across borders now when land borders open to official border posts, and that all measures be taken to carry out at least physical checks of those who are crossing the borders.
They also gave recommendations on the economic and monetary integration process, political stability, peace and security within the region.
Governance must address the issues that are germane to the contract between the government and the people. One, human rights. And then keeping to promises.
The outcome of the summit with regard to the integration process, and particularly with regard to the economic integration of West Africa, for me, lays a little bit of concern.
On Nigeria, the federal government was advised to re-strategize on its diplomatic framework to enable Nigerians benefit more from ECOWAS. In Abuja, Butsumila, NTA News.
And Agatha, in our Benin Network studio, we'll now take it up from here with more reports. I understand, unfortunately, we cannot join our Benin Network Center as the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 is now ready for today's briefing.
EC will update us on technical details, developments since the last time we met. Then we'll take the chairman of INEC, who will brief us. After that, if there are other updates, we'll take before we bring on board your questions, and then responses will come. So this afternoon, I will invite the chairman of the Presidential Task Force to the podium to present his remarks. But before then, apologies for delaying our guests. Thank you.
Members of the Presidential Task Force, Chairman and National Commissioners of INEC, distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the press, we add my voice to apologize to the Chairman and National Commissioners of INEC. We had invited them for 4 o'clock, but because of other engagements, we were unable to get here at the appropriate time. However, I welcome you all to the national briefing by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 for Thursday, 10th September 2020. The PTF had not briefed the nation since its last outing at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport when we all inspected the international wing preparatory to the reopening of the airspace. I'm pleased to inform you that as part of the efforts to restart the economy, Nigeria has reopened the international airspace on 5th September with flights allowed into Lagos and Abuja for now. Other international airports will follow in due course. The Presidential Task Force has also released the guidelines and protocols regarding the international flights, the obligations of airlines, the pre-boarding conditions and post-boarding choices available to passengers regarding arrangements and facilities for testing. Travelers are to visit the Nigeria International Travel Portal, www.nitp.ncdc.gov.ng to register before embarking on any international travels in and outside of Nigeria. For emphasis, I wish to reiterate that all travelers arriving in Nigeria must have tested negative for COVID-19 by PCR in country of departure, reboarding, and the PCR tests must have been done within 72 to 96 hours before departure. It is also important to note that passengers are required to remain in self-isolation upon arrival and undergo a mandatory COVID-19 test in a designated private laboratory by the 7th day after arrival. The Presidential Task Force is aware of and working with other partners to speedily resolve the teething challenges faced by intending travelers in accessing the portal, the cost of the test on arrival, inability to complete payment online, and consequential inability to board. We therefore apologize to everyone that had experienced these challenges using the platform. We assure all Nigerians and visitors to Nigeria that the PTF is working across multi-layer stakeholder platforms to ease the bottlenecks. Let me also assure you that the federal government is partnering with the private sector to facilitate the process of testing a week after arrival in a seamless manner. This is driven largely by, 1, deployment of technology, 2, freedom to pick a certified private laboratory of choice, and 3, delivering the service at minimal cost to government. Over the past 1 week, a lot of discussion in the public space has happened around the strike action by doctors and threat by other unions in the health sector. While appreciable progress has been made in the negotiations to resolve the issues, I must underscore the fact that we are in a global public health emergency situation that has impacted negatively on all aspects of our lives, including the economy and finances of government. This has made it imperative for all citizens, irrespective of their professions, and particularly health workers, to reawaken the sense of humanity and patriotism. The health survival of our dear nation is important, and we should eschew any action that will diminish the gains made in the containment of the pandemic so far. I'm pleased to announce that Mr. President has graciously approved additional 8.9 billion naira for COVID-19 hazard allowance to all medical and health workers in the country. In addition, the procurement of personal protective equipment, PPE, for hospitals and isolation centers is in progress and will be given priority. Last week, Mr. President attended the ECOWAS Heads of States and Government meeting in Niamey, Niger Republic, on Monday, where the issues of COVID-19 were discussed extensively. As the ECOWAS champion on COVID-19, the President informed the meeting on how Nigeria is tackling the pandemic in order to flatten the curve and advance steps being taken to push a regional agenda. The Honorable Minister, when he attends the meeting later on, was in attendance and will brief you in greater details. During the intervening week, the President presided over a ministerial retreat to review the first year performance of government as it relates to the 9 priority areas. During the program, the impact of COVID-19 and the national response was exhaustively discussed. At the end of the retreat, the President sent a message of hope and appreciation to all Nigerians, and particularly to the media, for the tremendous effort made in public awareness creation in the management of the national response. He also reassured Nigerians of a renewed determination to deliver on the promises of government to the nation. As part of the efforts to promote community engagement, the PTF met with the Northern Traditional Leaders Committee on Polio and Primary Health Care, led by the Sultan of Sokoto, to discuss on how we can control community spread of coronavirus. The Royal Fathers pledged their commitment and continued support as custodians of the rich history and cultures of our people. We are working on replicating this dialogue around the country. Also today, I had the privilege of briefing the National Food Security Council on the impact of COVID-19 on agriculture and the food value chain. The impact, no doubt, has been heavy, but the government has recalibrated its strategy for mitigating the impact. Last week, we promised that the chairman of INEC will join the national briefing to unveil the plans of the Commission for the Edo and Ondo governorship elections within the COVID-19 era. I therefore welcome Professor Mahmoud Yakubu and his colleagues to the briefing. He will be available to give you information and thereafter answer your questions. I now have the pleasure to invite the representative of the DG of the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, and thereafter the national coordinator, to give us the technical updates on developments. I want to thank you for your kind attention, and have a pleasant evening.
Good afternoon, Chairman, sir, honorable ministers, Chairman INEC. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just quickly touch on what is trending now in terms of the opening of the airport, some of the challenges. I know we're aware of some challenges, and I'm sure you have also received some information about the challenges that we have been facing. But we have been working with the team to make sure that we overcome these challenges, and the chairman just mentioned some of them. And one of the major challenges is getting the QR code after payment, and this we have tried to work on by having another website where they can get into and get their QR code. And this is a safe port, that's the https:/saferport, that's SAFER ports.com/mytraveler-record. Once they go into that, they will be able to get their QR code. But of course, the Aviation Ministry, as the NCCA has also informed all airlines that to allow passengers to come in without the QR code, and once they have the negative test result for COVID. So we're actually working on the with the team, but for those that are the pre-boarding, for those that are within Nigeria, that is going out of the country, I think the national coordinator might talk more on that, but we advise that they check with the airlines and the country where they're going to, the embassies, and check for the criteria or the necessary requirements before they do that. Now, quickly going to some of the focus for today, apart from that of the opening of the airline, and that is taking responsibility. And as we all know, at the beginning of the outbreak, we knew little or nothing about the disease, but thankfully we have known a lot now, and according to this research, about 80% of people infected with the virus will actually be moderate, mild, or not even show symptoms at all. However, there are some people that will have severe complications and require intensive care. These are mainly the elderly or persons with existing health conditions, such as those with diabetes, and that may weaken their immune system. So that's why we need to take responsibility. Because even though we, as healthy people, are not showing symptoms, but there are some that are that have conditions that they might not survive it. So we need to take responsibility. So our strategy in the country is to promptly detect, isolate, and manage cases to recovery. However, this is not straightforward when there are a high number of asymptomatic cases who are not easy to detect, and they don't even know that they have it. The danger of this is the continuous and unintentional spread of the disease, particularly to vulnerable persons who may develop severe complications. In Nigeria, the age group with the highest cases of COVID are those between 31 and 40, and those are the active age group. But the age group with the highest mortality are 50 and above, and unfortunately, at least one person out of 10 of that age group might die. So when we ask that we take responsibility, it is beyond protecting ourselves, and it's also for us to protect our loved ones. We all know someone who is vulnerable, and it is beyond, and this could be our elderly parents or friends battling with one illness or the other. The truth about COVID is that it affects anyone and everyone. We cannot afford to be lax about adhering to the preventive measures. It's also possible for someone that's having underlying condition not to know. So I would like to emphasize today, particularly for our young people that are low risk and do not have symptoms, so please take responsibility. If our efforts to slow the disease in Nigeria is to be effective, we must play our own part as citizens to support the efforts by the federal and state government. If we are showing symptoms, get tested. If it is a loved one, encourage them to get tested. There's no shame in getting tested and seeking treatment. We must continue to take responsibility by using masks in public places, maintaining that physical distance from others, frequent hand washing, and other measures that we need to take. And I hope with this, I think we know that we need to love ourselves and protect ourselves, and also protect our loved ones. Please, let's take responsibility. Thank you.
The Chairman of the Presidential Task Force, Honorable Ministers, members of the PTF, our distinguished guests, gentlemen of the press, good evening. So today I'll be talking briefly on the role of students in the safe reopening of schools. But before I do this, I would like to, first of all, just thank INEC for your support. You have been a critical partner in the COVID response. I remember when I first started, we relied heavily on you for the initial part of the pandemic response. We never called you, and you failed to respond to our requests. So we're very grateful. We also remember the memory of, you lost a staff, I believe one of your drivers, and we wish to honor his memory as well. But thank you so much, Chairman, and your team. We had a meeting today with the Northern Traditional Leaders Council with the Grand Patron, the Sultan of Sokoto, His Eminence, Mohammed Saad Abubakar, and the acting chair as well of the NTLC. We will be distributing the communique of this meeting in the coming days, but it was a very useful meeting where we looked at the role of the traditional institution in dealing with the COVID pandemic, in particular, changing the messenger, not necessarily changing the message itself, because I think the message has already been transmitted and received, but maybe the messenger needs to change. So we'll be working closely moving on with the Committee of Traditional Rulers. We know they did an excellent job with the polio eradication, and we want to leverage on that to improve our response. In terms of the issue of international airports, as stated earlier by the chairman and my colleague, yes, we've been having problems with the travel portal. This isn't unexpected. This is a new portal, and the demand on it has been significant. We are working day and night with our partners, CACOVID, through their IT units to resolve some of these issues. For the moment, we have put aside the mandatory requirement for a QR code for people boarding flights into Nigeria. But this is a temporary solution. Eventually, we will put back this requirement. Because we've done that, I'm appealing to all travelers from outside the country to please try and go onto the portal, upload their health questionnaire, upload their COVID-19 PCR, and try to pay. If you want to clear the airport quickly, this is the best way to do it. But if you want to spend a decent period of time at the airport trying to sort this out, then you don't need to go onto the portal. You'll still be allowed to board, but it will be much, much easier for you if you have everything at hand. Yesterday, it was taken barely a minute plus for people who had everything to clear the Port Health side and move on to immigration. So I will appeal to travelers to please continue to use the portal. For those that are leaving the country, yes, we know we haven't put any guidance in terms of what is needed. This is because different countries have different requirements. It is the responsibility of travelers to check with their airline and also to check with the country they're visiting what those requirements are. But where there's a need for PCR testing, we will add additional information on our system so that passengers can know where to go and have a test done. We are aware of instances where COVID PCR tests are being presented that are fake, and we are working with the authorities to deal with this as it arises. So I'll move on to my main theme today, which is the role of students in the safe reopening of schools. So we know that state authorities are in the process of planning to reopen schools. The PTF is appealing to state governments to ensure that two things happen. One, that a risk assessment is done for all schools that are reopening, and that measures are put in place for schools to reopen safely in strict compliance to national and state guidelines. We know that Nigerian youths make up a vast majority of our population. In fact, 44% of the population, based on the 2010 figures, are below the age of 15. The median age in our country is 18 years. And that means we have a youth bulge. And the youth, this particular age group, are the ones that are actually the primary drivers of the pandemic, because they are the ones that are least likely to be symptomatic. They are the ones that are more likely to go out, socialize, and pick up the infection. Almost every family in Nigeria has a young person between the ages of 18 to 40 years. And any form of letdown or relaxation can be fatal to the people around them, especially those that belong to the vulnerable groups, those below the age and those above the age of 60, and those with pre-existing conditions such as diabetes, hypertension, etc. There's no doubt COVID-19 is still a significant threat to us all and cannot be ignored as schools plan to open. Other than an effective lockdown, it's been shown consistently that school closure is one of the most effective ways of dealing with the COVID pandemic. It definitely, almost certainly poses a greater risk to the health and safety of the parents and the grandparents more than that of the students, and maybe to a lesser extent to the teachers, especially if they are of advanced age. We are appealing to students, parents, and school officials to continue to take precautionary measures that can change the current position of young people as high transmitters and turn them into champions of behavior change in their sphere of influence. So what's our appeal today for students and parents? While governments are ensuring institutions take the necessary action to safeguard health, safety, and security of students across the country, students, on the other hand, also have responsibilities. These responsibilities include the non-pharmaceutical interventions that we have mentioned over and over again. They must ensure physical distancing, stay 2 meters apart within classrooms, dining halls, hallways, adhere to alternate attendance arrangements. This is a difficult period for all of us. It's not a normal period. Class attendance will most likely be different from what it used to be. So therefore, students need to comply with any change in the arrangement in terms of attendance to classes or splitting of classes, etc. For our young, we know that they have peers and they have schoolmates that they haven't seen for a long time, and we urge them to socialize with them with great caution. We are also asking parents to please explain these life-saving guidelines to their children. Ensure that your children have masks. Ensure they have access to hand sanitizers. Ensure that they maintain physical distances and they understand the importance of these measures. Importantly, ensure that they wash their hands thoroughly and safely dispose used masks upon returning home. There's no doubt the reopening of schools and learning facilities must happen at some stage. We cannot run away from this. The education of our children is important, but it must be done in a safe manner, and we must continue to take responsibility in the fight against COVID-19. Finally, the PTF remains committed to supporting students, families, and the education sector through meaningful advisories that will guarantee the safety of our communities. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my colleagues on the Presidential Task Force, and INEC Chairman, I understand, is around, and other guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. You know, everybody is a masquerade now, so you cannot really recognize. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, and the House once again. I had to rush down from the engagement we're having with Johesu. You know, yesterday we had a 8-hour engagement with the National Association of Resident Doctors, and today we're still on. The engagement with Johesu is still on, and we'll probably have to go back there. But when I understand that the minister may not be here, I decided to just quickly rush down. So my apology once again. Today is 10th of September 2020. The total number of positive cases recorded in Nigeria is 55,632 of a total of 433,206 samples tested. In the last 24 hours, we recorded 176 positive cases out of 2,494 samples tested. We continue to record low positivity rate, even as the number of samples tested has increased. While this is a cheering development, it will be presumptuous to conclude that the disease is reducing. This is because, as of today, not many states are testing. We shall therefore ensure that testing continues in all the states until we reach our delayed target. 10% of the positive cases are children and adolescents, with more than half of them in the age bracket of 10 to 18 years. It is therefore pertinent at this point to renew the warning of the Presidential Task Force on the reopening of schools so as not to expose our children to the risk of infection. In our meeting with the Chief Medical Directors and Medical Directors of the Federal Teaching Hospitals and Medical and Specialist Hospitals last week, we stressed the need for them to work in synergy with the state governments to ensure a coordinated response. The meeting also provided an opportunity for the medical directors to exchange notes and share experience. Important components on COVID-19 response, such as laboratory testing, home-based care, psychosocial implications of COVID-19, challenges associated with COVID-19 case management were discussed. A critical and important outcome of the meeting was the resolve of the medical directors to complement the efforts of the state governments in the fight against the pandemic. They also stressed the need for continued routine services in order not to erode the gains we have made in other areas of health. This was also underscored in our meeting with the Honorable Commissioners of Health on Tuesday, September 1st, 2020. It is in this regard that a countrywide deployment of community volunteers to intensify contact tracing where possible and active case finding, supported by various partners that are working with us. This morning, we had the honor of addressing the meeting of the Northern Traditional Leaders Committee on Primary Healthcare Delivery with the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. We are happy to note that the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency still enjoys the confidence and strong support of the committee. The pivotal role traditional and religious leaders played in building community trust and acceptance of the oral polio vaccine was a game changer. We therefore hope to leverage upon this advantage to halt community transmission of COVID-19. Before closing, let me just reiterate. Some of you must have heard on the news a couple of days ago that the Russians supplied us with some vaccines. This is absolutely false. The Russian ambassador to Nigeria visited in company of the deputy head of mission, and all they did was to just bring a memoir, which is a kind of diplomatic communication, to let us know that, well, they are working on a vaccine, and it's still in the third phase of clinical trial. Usually you have 3 phases: the first phase, the second, and then the third, which is the last phase, where you now have several thousands of volunteers being administered with the vaccine. And that does not end the process. They still have to be followed for about a year to see whether complications or side effects will manifest. So as at this point in time, that vaccine is yet to get to that stage. So talk less of being released even in Russia. So we needed to correct that, and I think the Honorable Minister and myself, we did that to correct that impression. And even when the vaccine is ready at all, it will still be subjected to our own processes here. That's where we have NAFDAC, we have National Institute of Pharmaceutical Research and Development. The vaccines will be analyzed, will be checked for safety, and then, of course, the issue of efficacy. Because vaccines are things that you give mass application. You apply them to a large number of people. So you cannot afford to take chances. So you need to check and establish the safety. And in so doing, you want to look at the various segments of the society. Children, adults, the elderly, and of course those with comorbidities. You want to be sure that is it safe to apply to those, or administer this to those who have diabetes, who have heart disease, have hypertension, liver disease, kidney disease, and all that. These are all the things that you need to check and establish before you can say this vaccine is good or not. And at the last count, we have close to about 230 vaccine candidates. Of course, this race for releasing vaccine has gone beyond human race, but rat race. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister of State for Health. Dear colleagues, I now invite to the podium the chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, to update us on the preparations for elections.
Thank you very much. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, the National Coordinator, Honorable Ministers, the representative of the DG and CDC, Honorable National Commissioners, INEC, the media, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by thanking the PTF for the invitation, not just to brief the PTF, but to brief the nation on the preparations for the forthcoming elections, in particular, the Edo governorship election holding next week. The election is on Saturday next week. The COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted virtually every facet of life worldwide, including elections. Electoral commissions are now required to organize free, fair, credible, and in the context of COVID-19, safe elections. Conduct of elections under COVID-19 is an uncharted territory. There is no history of such election in Nigeria and no global best practice that any election management body can rely upon. Similarly, as a multi-stakeholder activity, how do you conduct election and at the same time ensure the safety of voters, INEC officials, security personnel, accredited domestic and international observers, journalists, the candidates, the polling agents, and service providers such as transporters? Millions of people are involved in elections, in close proximity in the course of party primaries, electioneering campaigns, voting on election day, and collation of results and declaration of winners. How do you ensure that the health, not fiscal security, of all those involved is protected? Fortunately, the Presidential Task Force, working with the health authorities, provided a guide, the national policy. Anchored on those guidelines, INEC developed a policy specific to our mandate, covering not only the conduct of elections, but also electoral activities in general, involving voter registration, political party and election observation, and securing the electoral process. In order to protect voters, officials, and other stakeholders, the Commission identified 8 protective measures drawing from the national policy, ranging from the mandatory use of face masks, hand sanitizers, use of methylated spirit and cotton wool to clean the smart card readers after the fingerprint of each voter is read, the rules of physical distancing, the use of infrared thermometers, and procedures for handling voters and election officials showing COVID-19 symptoms. And this is the policy developed by the Commission. We have shared it widely, but we have also come with sufficient copies for all members of the PTF and all persons present in this hall. So there will be a takeaway at the end of this briefing. You will have a copy of our national policy. Drawing from the broad policies, the Commission developed a 10-point voters' code of conduct targeted specifically at the voter, giving details of the do's and don'ts at polling units on election day. For instance, it is mandatory for every voter to wear the face mask or face covering, without which the voter will not be allowed to vote. We need to emphasize that we are not asking for the kind of face mask I'm wearing, not surgical face mask, but face covering. Face covering will be sufficient for the voter to be accredited and to vote. Also, voters are required to maintain physical distancing. The Commission introduced 2 queues, one outside the polling area and the other inside the polling area. Within the inner queue, voters must maintain the mandatory 2-meter or 6-foot distance from each other. And we clearly marked this in one of the by-elections we conducted last month. I will come to that shortly. Furthermore, voters must avoid touching surfaces or leaning on walls at polling units. Furthermore, we also have clear protocols for dealing with voters who show symptoms such as high temperature, cough, sneezing, etc. In this case, they must obey all directions by officials to stop other voters from getting infected. Then there is also the procedure for evacuation in the event of emergency. In doing so, we collaborate with health officials. In Edo State, for instance, we are working with the state response team. And we were in Edo a couple of weeks ago. We had a meeting with the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health, who has made contact details of their officials in Benin City and in all the local government areas that we can immediately contact them on election day for emergency response. And they have all been put on alert. For the purpose of voter education, we have produced a 10-point voters' code of conduct. And this has been produced by way of a poster for voter education. And this is the poster. Voting in Safety, the INEC Voters Code of Conduct. This has already been mass-produced with support from development partners and delivered to the states where we have elections, Edo, Ondo, and other states, because we also have by-elections in 11 states in 15 constituencies on October 31st. So in the next 1 week or so, we'll have the Edo election. 3 weeks later, we'll go to Ondo, and 3 weeks later, we'll deploy to 11 states of the Federation for elections in 15 constituencies. So we have produced the posters for voter education. We have also produced a handbill based on the Voter Code of Conduct, not only for voter education, but also for training of our officials on election duty. So it's the same poster, but it comes in a very handy form. Here it is. I have also brought sufficient copies for members of the PTF and all persons present in this hall. For inclusivity, we have produced our policy in Braille for visually impaired voters. And here it is. The pages appear blank, but the visually impaired can read the Braille guide. So the entire national policy for conducting elections in the context of COVID has also been produced in Braille for the benefit of voters who can't see and therefore can't read our flyers and our posters. I'm unsure how many people read Braille here. Otherwise, we also have a few copies that I can leave behind. We have also translated the 10-point Voters Code of Conduct into Braille for visually impaired voters. So this is the same poster developed into a handbill, and then we developed it into a Braille for the visually impaired voters on election day. INEC is working with security personnel during elections, working with the security agencies through or under the auspices of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, ECOWAS. The Commission has produced and revised the Code of Conduct and Rules of Engagement for security personnel on election duty. And that also includes COVID guidelines. And this is a copy of the Code of Conduct and Rules of Engagement for security personnel on electoral duty. It's signed by the INEC chairman and the National Security Advisor as co-chairman of ECOWAS, but it's also signed by the Inspector General of Police as head of the lead agency in election security. And this document is available on the INEC website. It's also available on the police website, the website of the Office of the National Security Advisor, and the Department of State Services. As I said, we have copies of all these documents that we make available to you all. However, all these steps are in the realm of planning. We have planned well. The true test of the plan is the actual implementation. We are aware that we have two major elections in Edo and Ondo for the election of governors, as well, as I said earlier, of several by-elections. To ensure proper implementation of the policy, the Commission decided to do a test run in a by-election in the Nasarawa Central State constituency in Nasarawa State on the 8th of August 2020. This is a small constituency made up of 44 polling units and 36 voting points, making a total of 80 polling points. All the protocols enumerated in our policy were practically implemented, and the overall result is very encouraging. We are going into Edo next week, assured that we have test run our preparations for voting under the COVID-19 pandemic. And before I conclude, let me express the Commission's appreciation to the PTF. On our request, on the request of the Commission, the PTF appointed an incident manager, Dr. Hassan. I saw him somewhere. Dr. Hassan? They appointed an incident manager, Dr. Hassan, to work with the Commission. He was part of our team that visited Nasarawa for the stakeholders meeting ahead of the election we conducted on August 8th, and also gave us very useful tips on what more we should do ahead of that election. He was with us in Edo a couple of weeks ago, and by God's grace, he will be on our team on Saturday when we go back to Edo for stakeholders meeting ahead of the election on Saturday. But in addition, the PTF has recommended the deployment of infrared thermometers at PUs on election day. But as a result of budgetary constraints, INEC doesn't have all the resources. The Commission only made provision for the deployment of thermometers at collation centers, which are fewer than the numerous polling units. We have in Edo State 192 ward collation centers, 18 local government collation centers, and 1 collation center. But the polling units are more numerous. We have almost 3,000 voting locations in Edo State. We simply don't have the resources to buy the handheld thermometers and deploy them at polling units. Happily, PTF has supplied initially 100 units of the thermometers which we deployed to Nasarawa, and I'm also glad to say that they have made available 3,000 polling units, 3,000 thermometers to deploy to the polling units in Edo State. I want to assure the PTF that we'll prudently use these thermometers in Edo, and we'll move the same thermometers 3 weeks later to Ondo for the governorship election on the 10th of October, 2020. Finally, the Chairman PTF, I would like to appeal to all parties and candidates and all those involved in the election, whether it's in Edo, Ondo, or the by-elections, to eschew violence. In the context of COVID-19, violence will not only disrupt the elections, it will also complicate the nation's response to the health emergency. I wish to reassure the people of Edo and Ondo states of our determination to conduct free, fair, and transparent elections. Let us all work together to also ensure that the process is peaceful. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chairman INEC, for the reassuring position of the Commission on the forthcoming governorship elections and other elections. Now we can take the questions from the gentlemen of the press. Are we ready?
Yes. Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the task force, my colleagues, good evening. My name is Nancy Oyedia Orom from AIT. I would like to direct all my questions to the INEC chairman. So time and time again, we've heard you say INEC is ready to conduct elections, and which has occurred in the past years. And we keep having this difficulty matching your words with action when we get to the polling centers. Now, coming to the issue at hand, which is Edo State, we see the fact that the contenders in question at the moment have been at loggerheads in recent time. Are you assuring us that INEC is ready 100% to conduct a free, fair, and credible election in Edo State? And secondly, sir, you have mentioned that you will be engaging with the security agencies in order to avert some attacks that may occur. Are you also assuring us that with this collaboration with the security agencies, we will avert any attack in Edo State and on those states as well? Now, in 2015, I'm aware that card readers were deployed in various parts of the country for a successful election. Now, in one of your press, I think I saw where you said a new technology will also be rolled out in this election, which is called ZPAD. I don't know if that is correct. And if it's correct, sir, I want to know, in 2015 election, we saw challenges using the card reader, which is a technology. So I don't know how much training you've given those that will be handling some of these technological devices in order not to have some of the challenges we had in 2015. And this technology also, does it require the internet? I want to know if it requires the internet. What about rural villages where there is no access to the internet? I want to know what you'll be doing in those places. And also, finally, I want you to give us a clear-cut distinction of a ZPAD and also a card reader. Thank you.
The Chairman, National Coordinator, members of the PTF, INEC Chairman, my colleagues. My name is Amaka Ode. I report for Arise News. And my one question to the INEC Chairman, simply, we've seen all the reports coming out of Edo State with all the threats of violence and all of that. In the forthcoming gubernatorial elections, what would actually lead to the cancellation of elections in a particular unit or particular station? That is all I need to know from you. My next question actually is for the National Coordinator, Dr. Sani Aliyu. Well, you have actually spoken about self-isolating for everyone who's coming into Nigeria, but are they expected to self-isolate in the city where they landed, or are they allowed to travel to their communities in case they are not based in Abuja or Lagos, which are the only two airports currently allowed to bring in passengers? And if they are allowed to travel, how about their retesting? How do we intend to fix that? And also staying with you, Dr. Sani, from your last briefing, at the last PTF briefing at the international airport in Abuja here, you actually get some clarification as it concerns lifting of the ban on sporting activities, but it seemed like it's not very clear, because you spoke about non-contact sports being allowed to start, but are you saying that football and other sporting activities can resume in Nigeria? We need that clarification this evening. And also, finally, to the representative of the DG of the NCDC. Well, now that we're testing more people, especially those who are planning to travel out of Nigeria, some of them who might eventually turn out to be positive, are those results going to be added to the national tally? We need that clarification. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, sir. The SGF, the ministers, and the INEC chairman, and all the commissioners. I welcome everybody and my colleagues. I'm going to ask some questions in English, and also I'm going to ask in Yoruba. Just only one for my Minister of Affairs. Well, INEC chairman, sir, there are some questions that just came to me just now. They sent it to me on my WhatsApp, and they're like, Edo State election especially. They mentioned a name. They said Mr. Mustafa Liki. There's an issue on that name. That how are you people going to guide against this so that at least that election will be credible, fair, and transparent? Also, they also mentioned in the area of employing ad hoc staff. That are you people really not so partial in bringing people up? And what training have you been doing for them, especially in this area of COVID-19 issue? Then another advice that we have for INEC is that when we're talking about Nigeria, we have a lot of tribes, languages. We are not basically English-speaking country. There are some other languages, 3 most important indigenous languages. And with all this awareness, all these things that you are putting together, I think the 3 indigenous languages are also very, very important, because we are talking about the grassroots. The grassroots. And most people, like the market women, most of them cannot read. And they are the people that will be going out to go and vote. So I'm just advising, maybe you can put it together in these 3 indigenous languages for the grassroots. It may be very late for Edo and Ondo State and for other by-election that is coming, but there are some other elections coming up. I think we can put that into it. Then my minister, sir, Minister of Health, Senator Mamora, sir, you just mentioned to us, now I'm going to ask in Yoruba, ẹ má gbàgbé orúkọ mi ní Abíọ́dún Pópóọlá. Ẹ ṣàlàyé fún wa wípé ẹ ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ ṣe ìpàdé tó pẹ̀lú àwọn ẹgbẹ́ èyí tó rí sí àwọn tó jẹ́ pé wọ́n ń tọ́jú àwọn tí wọ́n wà ní ipò àìlera, àwọn dókítà. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́ ẹ bá wa sọ ní èdè Yorùbá àwọn ìgbìyànjú ilé-iṣẹ́ yín àti pé àwọn àṣeyọrí wo ló ti jáde nípasẹ̀ ìpàdé tí ẹ ṣe yìí. Thank you very much, sir.
Good evening, all. Rachel Abuja from the News Agency of Nigeria. My first question is for the SGF. Sir, the instance on authorities to ensure safety guidelines and protocols at entry points for international travel of our airports and is now established religiously and it's implemented, which is commendable. However, we all know that Nigeria is largely porous because of our land. Sir, how do we ensure that the tight safety measures put in place at the airport also gets instituted at our land borders and our major parks as this regards interstate movement? Thank you, sir. My next question is for the coordinator. Sir, there's been concern over the true state of the pandemic in Nigeria. About 70% of activities like surveillance, contact tracing, testing, treatment, and general data are from Lagos, FCT, Plateau State, and Edo State, while the remaining states combined give 30%, yet activities and data generated is used to describe the situation of the country in responding to the pandemic. Nigerians would like to know how scientific this is at the moment. My next question is for the NCDC representative. Since the beginning of the response, we have been notified repeatedly that the two major milestones to manage the case burdens are the opening of airports and schools. We have done the formal. What are plans to ensure that the latter is well managed and that any spike in case is well managed too? Thank you. And my last question, sir, is for the INEC chairman. Sir, will the commission or is the commission contemplating heavy fine or other positive measures on parties that will be violating the COVID-19 safety protocols? Thank you.
Good evening, the chairman and members of the PTF. My name is Mitaire Ikben. I report for the NTA. I have a short and simple question for the INEC chairman. Sir, if there are clear breaches of COVID-19 protocols during elections conducted during this pandemic, will such breaches affect the validity of votes cast during the election? And for the national coordinator of the PTF, on one hand, the PTF has said that mass gatherings are limited to 50 persons, especially in enclosed spaces. And on the other hand, the PTF has said that amusement parks, event centers are to operate at half capacity. I know a lot of event centers in Abuja and even in other states of the Federation that have capacity for, say, 1,000. And if they operate at half, that will be 500. Is that what the PTF wants? Or will the PTF abrogate its restriction of mass gatherings to 50 persons? Thank you.
Good evening, members of the PTO.
My name is Juliana Taiwo Baloyen of the Sun newspapers. First question goes to the coordinator. Please, has the protocol on funeral rights been reviewed? If yes, can we know them for the benefit of those that want to bury the dead? Follow up to my colleague's question on return of contact sports or the resumption of contact sports. Is the PTF considering allowing limited number of fans into stadium, like 30 to 50% capacity? For INEC chairman, please. COVID has shown that this is the time to embrace electronic voting going forward. How soon do you recommend that Nigeria embraces e-voting? Thank you, sir.
Good evening, the SGF, honorable ministers, INEC, chairman, and my colleagues. My name is Rahila Lassa. I report for Voice of Nigeria. My first question is for the INEC chairman. I want to know the format INEC is using for the Edo and Ondo elections. Will people be allowed to do accreditation, then go back home and come later for the elections, or it's going to be done simultaneously? And then secondly, when you are giving the guidelines for the elections, you said people are not supposed to use face masks, they are supposed to use face coverings. What do you mean by face covering? What's your definition of face covering? Is it the face shield, or you have what you call the face covering? Then for the national coordinator, still on funerals, a report just reaching me from Rivers says that the state governor is not, or state government is not allowing people at funeral to exceed 50, and people have been complaining. So I want to know, is that the max, is 50 the max, or it has been reviewed? Thank you.
Okay, we have taken all the questions, and they've been directed at the Honorable Minister of State for Health, the DG NCDC, the National Coordinator, and the INEC Chairman. Finally, the Chairman of the PTF will come up to the podium to round it up. So we'll begin in this order. The Honorable Minister of State for Health, followed by the DG NCDC, the National Coordinator, before we take the INEC Chairman. So, Honorable Minister of State.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, my colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, ìbéèrè tí ó wá láti arábìnrin Abiodun Popoola láti ilé-iṣẹ́ Voice of Nigeria ni wípé kí ni àbájáde àwọn ìpàdé tí a ṣe pẹ̀lú àwọn dókítà tí wọ́n daṣẹ́lẹ̀ àti èyí tí à ń ṣe lọ́wọ́. Fún àwọn dókítà tí wọ́n daṣẹ́lẹ̀ ní láti ọjọ́ Monday, àwọn tí à ń pè ní National Association of Resident Doctors, àwọn dókítà tí wọ́n tún kọ́ṣẹ́ mọṣẹ́, a dúpẹ́ pé a ti bára wa sọ òótọ́ ọ̀rọ̀ ní àná, and a dẹ̀ ní ìdánilójú wípé ìdáṣẹ́sílẹ̀ yẹn ó máa dópin ní lénìí, nítorí pé a jẹ́ kí wọ́n mọ̀ wípé tí dókítà bí gbogbo àwọn tó ń ṣe iṣẹ́ ìwòsàn, a jẹ́ kí wọ́n mọ̀ wípé tí wọ́n bá daṣẹ́ sílẹ̀, kò ń ṣe ìjọba ni wọ́n ń bájà, àwọn aláìsàn ni wọ́n ń bájà, nítorí pé àwọn gan ni ó kàn. a dẹ̀ jẹ́ kí wọ́n mọ̀ yìí pé Yorùbá máa ń sọ yìí pé ẹ̀mí ò lárọ̀. At least you cannot replace. When someone is dead, that person is dead. So, pé kí wọ́n mọ̀ yìí pé kò ń ṣe nǹkan tó lẹ́tọ̀ọ́, pàápàá jùlọ fún àwọn dókítà, nítorí pé kété tí a bá ti parí ẹ̀kọ́ wa ni a máa ń búra, wọ́n máa ń ṣe ìbúra fún wa tí a fi máa sọ wípé bí a ṣe máa tọ́jú àwọn aláìsàn, òun ló máa jẹ́ nǹkan tó ṣe pàtàkì jù fún wa. A dẹ̀ dúpẹ́ wípé àwọn náà rí nǹkan tí à ń sọ. Bí ó bá tẹ̀ jẹ́ wípé àwọn kan wà tí wọ́n fẹ́ tí wọ́n tí ì rí, àsìkò tá a wà yìí kì í ṣe àsìkò tí wọ́n ní láti sọ wípé àwọn ń daṣẹ́ sílẹ̀. Àwọn náà dẹ̀ rí nǹkan tá à ń sọ. Gẹ́gẹ́ bí àwa náà tí ẹ ní àǹfààní láti wà nínú ìjọba, à ń jẹ́ kí a fi yé wọn wípé àwọn nǹkan tó bá dàbí ẹ̀tọ́ wọn ó di dandan pé kí a ṣe. A lè jẹ́ kí wọ́n mọ̀ yìí pé ìjọba tó wà lóde ń ṣe ìjọba tí aláṣẹ àgbà pátápátá Muhammadu Buhari wà. Oye tí a ti san fún ẹ̀sùn